All right, so we're going to do piecewise applications, and piecewise applications are pretty important, I think, just because it's a common idea in the real world that you have a certain price given one circumstance and another price given another circumstance. For instance, if you're going to like a baseball game in Durham, if you have one rate if you have just a couple people going, but if you have a group going, then the rate changes. You could represent that with a piecewise function. So here we have a word problem that's about a dog groomer, and they charge $35 if the dog is 15 pounds and under. If the dog is between 15 and 40 pounds, it's $40 to groom the dog, and if the dog weighs more than 40 pounds, it's an additional $2 per pound. So we have three different situations here. So when we write a piecewise function, we're going to have three different functions, basically, that we're talking about. So if the dog is 15 pounds and under, the groomer charges $35. So that's a flat rate. The individual, if it's 14 pounds or 13 pounds or 12 pounds, that amount does not change. So I'm going to say if x is less than or equal to 15. So 15 pounds and under. Next, if the dog is between 15 and 40 pounds, she charges $40. So we're going to say $40, and this is if the dog is between 15 and 40. So we already said if it equals 15 exactly, that's $35. So here when we use 15, we're not going to use the equal to version. We're just going to say 15 is less than our x value, and that's less than or equal to 40 if you're in between that amount. And then the last part is the part that's a little bit trickier. It says if your dog is over 40 pounds, she charges $40 plus an additional $2 per pound. So you have $2 per pound. And now it would be tempting to write times x, right? And then x is the number of pounds that your dog is. But then if you had a 41-pound dog, you'd say 2 times 41 plus the original 40. So we don't want to think of this as just plain old x here. I want to know how many pounds above 40 pounds that dog is, because it's the additional pounds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put parentheses here, and I'm going to say the pounds of the dog take away 40. So if we have a 45-pound dog, then we would do 45 take away 40 is 5 pounds over. And then we'd say $40 plus 2 times the 5 pounds over that they went. And we're going to say this is the case if x is greater than 40. All right. And sometimes I should have done this ahead of time, but I forgot. Oftentimes it's good to define what your x is in the very beginning, just because it helps you if you get a little bit confused in writing your function. So here the x would be the weight of the dog in pounds. And then that would leave f of x, or the y value, to be the cost of grooming your dog. So down here for graphing the function, since we are doing a story problem, we should label our axes so that the person who looks at this knows what everything represents. So the x was the weight of the dogs in pounds. And since we have to go, we know our x values go from 0, because it's less than 15, we're not going to have negatives, all the way up to 40 or more. I'm going to say maybe going by 5s is probably your easiest option, and I'm lazy, so I don't want to write all these numbers. So I'm going to say 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. We'll call it good there. And then over here we're going to have to graph this, so we have 35 and 40 for the y-axis for sure, and this is going to be the cost for grooming. And this is in dollars. Okay, and I'll go ahead and maybe go, I counted and there are exactly 40 spaces, but we have to go above 40. So let's go ahead and just go by 5s again. Means our graph will be kind of squished on here. That's okay. Okay. So the first one says $35 exactly if your dog is 15 pounds exactly. So we're going to say here is where our dog is 15 pounds, and up here is $35. So if my dog is 15 pounds, I pay $35. If my dog is 10 pounds, I pay $35. If my dog is 5 pounds, I pay $35. So all of these values in between here, any X value in between there is going to be $35. So we got a horizontal line. And then if we're more than 15 pounds, we bump up to $40. So I'm going to put an open circle here, and it goes all the way up to 40 pounds. So there's our $40 right there. Okay. Now this one, you can probably tell it's going to be a linear function. And if you try to simplify it so you can write it in y equals mx plus b, I'll show you the math over here. 40 plus 2x minus 80. That means we're going to be trying to graph 2x minus 40. That's going to be hard to graph because we have a y-intercept that's negative. We don't even have that drawn. So what I am thinking we could do is just maybe plug in a point and then graph that. So if you used 40 exactly, because that's where we're connecting, 40 take away 40 is 0. 2 times 0. So that makes sense, right? If you're 40, you're spending 40, which, you know, is logical. So then let's say if we had a 50-pound dog, then we would do 40 plus 2 times 50 minus 40. So that would be 40 plus 2 times 10 is 20. So if we have a 50-pound dog, that's going to be $60. So here for 50 pounds, I'm going to go up to $60. And then we'll go ahead and say this part continues forever, right? Anything greater than 40, so we're going to go up. Put an arrow. I guess not forever. There's probably a point where you don't have dogs that are bigger than that, but we basically have it. Okay. So it says, what would the groomer charge if your cute dog weighs 60 pounds? So for 60 pounds, we're going to go ahead and plug in to, we're not in this bracket, we're not in this bracket, we're in this one, so we're going to be plugging it into that formula right there. And since we simplified it, if you want to do this one, you can, or you can do the original. It doesn't really matter. So 60 minus 40 is 20. So 40 plus 2 times 20 is another 40, so that's going to be $80. Oh, you couldn't even see it. Sorry, my bad. So there's that part. That's what I was writing when I was talking. I know that I wrote 15 pounds, but I did not realize when I was typing this that was in the original problem already. So then let's go ahead and do 115 pounds. So 40 plus 2 times 115 minus 40, and that ends up being 190. And anytime we do an application problem in math, we should always write the result in a sentence that makes sense. So here I'm going to say, if your dog weighs 60 pounds, you'll pay $80. And if it weighs 115 pounds, you'll pay $190.